Hello.
Hey, Sonny, all right? How's it going?
I'm good, thank you. Well, just about. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. I'm just trying to suss out this Instagram.
I think you're better off than me. I'm still learning. I'm back to baby steps now with Instagram. So there you go.
It's quite frightening, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you don't mind. I've just been for a walk in the park and I've just put the kettle on. So hope you don't mind if I just sip at my tea at the same time as we're chatting. So then, how's your week been then, Neil?
Yeah,
How's your week? Was this last week?
yeah, no, it's been fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, so like I said, lots of sun, and yeah, no, it's just been really, really relaxing, actually, really relaxing.
Oh, right. So you had a nice break.
Yeah, yeah, it's been fantastic. Yeah, fantastic.
Really good stuff then. So what's on your mind then today then, Neil? So I think you got something on your mind, haven't you? When you want to discuss it with the audience.
Yeah, yeah. I think we should talk about time travel. Time travel. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you ever watched Bill and Ted's what was it? What was Bill and Ted's film when they went back in time?
Yes, I remember. Yes. It's quite interesting, the whole kind of philosophy behind it and the whole theme, isn't it? Quite
Yeah,
reflective, isn't it?
yeah. I think it's really interesting, isn't it? And when you look at it in terms of coaching,
Mm.
I don't know whether you've ever asked anyone to sort of step back into that role of what would you sort of say to your younger self. But I think when you look at it in terms of like time travel, obviously, like I
Yeah.
said, I think it's a really interesting kind of like concept to consider in terms of sort of like how you would view things if you were doing things very differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how far do you want to go back in time, Neil? Say 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in my case. 30 years in my case, I'll still be a slip of a lad at 20, I think. 21.
Well, I'll, I'll let you decide that one. How far back do you want to go? So you can tell the audience. Look, we've got somebody. Hey,
Yeah. Hi there, Abby. Hello. Hi there.
hi,
Yes.
Abby.
Fantastic. How about time travel? Like, I don't know, should we say 6 months before the pandemic started, and how life is different? Or we can go back even further if you like. Say about 10 years. What would that be? 2010?
Okay, yeah, okay. 2010 would be a great time to go back to. Yeah,
I think we just kind of, I think we were either in the midst of the economic slowdown or recession, 2008, 2009. So
yeah,
we were coming into that. And I think it was the time when, yeah, the Conservative government came to power with the Liberal Democrats. So there was a hung parliament.
yeah.
And then I remember that it was all about cutbacks on austerity, etc., etc. So should we go back about 10 years then, Neil? So where were you then? So what were you doing?
Let's do it. Are we going to press that magic button and go back in time? Boop.
It's 2010. We wish.
Well, 2010, I actually went to university as a mature student. So I literally just completed my access course.
Yeah.
And so I was actually at college then. So I was 40. No, sorry, 31.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I would have been about 40. Yeah, probably about 41, 42 years old at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I
And
said,
so you were,
I'm trying.
so you were a mature student then. Where were you at university?
Yeah. So I went on to Bournemouth University, which is where I studied my nursing degree.
Okay. Fair play. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know actually. So yeah. So if you kind of keep that concept of like time traveling back to 10 years ago. So for me, when I think about it in terms of sort of, I think where we're at right now in terms of COVID and keeping this
Yeah.
real to the actual everything that's going on around us. I think for me, if I was going back 10 years ago, I think I would definitely give myself some advice about like life skills,
Yeah.
about what sort of things to kind of bear in mind.
Yeah.
I was 30 years old with a mortgage.
Yeah.
And I'd done a lot of traveling prior to that.
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of like I didn't really take into account kind of like actually how much of an impact that was going to have on my life going to university as a mature student. And obviously going to university from full-time employment to then go on a bursary, life just became very, 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 very hard. Yeah, very hard.
Yeah, yeah. So, so like from a sort of an economic financial point of view, then it was a different situation for you because you were studying at the time, and and that's normally the case, isn't it? I mean, I remember. I mean, I finished university way back in 1993 after I did my teacher training after doing a degree. All of my higher education was up north, Sheffield and then Manchester. And in those days, we had grants and things. I think now it's all loans and whatnot. And I think when we go back 10 years ago, yes, I had a mortgage then. My children were a lot younger. They would have been about 13 and 8. So in the midst of them, you know, a young family, children growing up, going to work full time in a professional career. And it was almost like, you know, everything was just like in a bit of a bubble. It was like, you know, couldn't really, you know, just like, right, you know, life is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it was just like a logical sequence. There didn't seem to be, and it, not that I didn't have freedom. I suppose it just, we were like many people, you know, in that mode, you just kind of feel that you're kind of in this cocoon, so to speak. And I think going back 10 years ago, I would have liked to have learned more kind of not interpersonal skills, but more softer skills around how you can still be free internally, but you're still in a routine. You know, you still got a job to be maintaining, you got young family, kids, house, mortgage, and rather than feel in your mind that it's all constraining you and adding unwittingly to stress and anxiety, just to have, I would have liked to have been trained in mindset work, you know, 10 years ago. But I'm not sure, Neil, I mean, you might have a better idea than this because you've got a nursing background. So I don't know whether 10 years ago that was the done thing in terms of looking at people's mindsets and having a different way of being or coping. I think for me personally, the last 5 years, I've learned so much about mindset development, the power of the mind, the difference between the unconscious mind, subconscious mind, and the conscious mind. The power of one's shadows, which is the unsavory parts of ourselves that we just want to push to one side, and then it comes back loud, you know, screaming and all sorts of things. So I think around mindset and resilience development is something that I really could have benefited 10 years ago. But I mean, like 10 years ago, was that going on there in terms of that kind of training, personal development, or? Oh,
I think it's interesting you made that point there, like I said, because the thing is with it is if I go back 10 years now and I was having a conversation with myself about going to university as a mature student, I would have actually said to that person, look, you know, be aware that actually, do you know what, that you're going to take on quite a lot of responsibility here. Although you're wanting to develop as a person and to expand your network for yourself, be aware of actually like the stress and the barriers that you're going to face for the next 3 years. You know, and that is that, you know, I was 31 going into higher education and holidays were gone. That was it. There were no holidays, you know. So for the next 4 years, I literally was living like somebody, although I was trying to develop. I actually didn't have, I don't think I had a lot of life skills in sense of actually what was going to prepare me for that journey.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and what I actually did was I actually felt the actual main goal of actually getting a degree or getting something from university was all I needed. When actually really 10 years ago, if it was me standing there now, I would be saying, look, you know, you need to actually take some time to actually get up and do some meditation. Or actually, physical fitness is going to play a massive part.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So really, in terms of the mind, body, and soul, kind of the interaction between the three of them, for me, you know, now when I'm talking to you as a 51-year-old and having, you know, learned a lot about life, a lot about education, because my field is education and now coaching now, is that I just wish at that time, you know, years and years ago, we were taught a few strategies around, you know, how we can interact, you know, the body with the mind and the soul for our betterment, our well-being, rather than getting, you know, all of the things that we have to get done, like go to work, earn money, and look after the family, and blah 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 blah. Even organizing a holiday could be so stressful, and when you don't really get relaxed until probably after the first week when you're actually overseas somewhere or wherever you're going. But I just think that there's an opportunity now. I believe that there's lots of gaps. There's definitely gaps in terms of my own kind of learning and personal development journey that I'm still learning about now, and also helping clients as well with managing stress, anxiety, becoming more resilient. And I sometimes question, you know, why weren't we taught things like, you know, how to inspire, how to become resilient, how to underpower your mind, what is stress, and how it can actually attack your body, and how it can, you know, weaken your immune system. And the, you know, in terms of the physiology, yes, we do need to learn about the immune system and what can really impact it, and things like a stressful job or a stressful relationship or all sorts of challenges. But that's for me. I think that time I just wish. But then again, hindsight's always a wonderful thing. I mean, it is about the present now, in terms of, this is why I think, you know, the brilliant work that we're doing is that we're helping people to kind of realize those things as well. But further on, we're giving them some quite specific techniques and strategies and hacks for them, so they don't see themselves on the other end, you know, of, you know, the sort of negative side, where stress can be negative but also positive. It's got something called eustress. You know, if you've harnessed eustress, spelled with the EU, then, you know, you feel this resurgence of innate power, and you can do anything. You can write a book or do a massive course or whatever you want to do a parachute jump. You know, it's about how you can build up to that. So yeah, I think that, for me, that's the whole. Is that the education system, or is that society as a whole, in terms of why we haven't been? But now it's obviously very important. Yeah, the whole well-being industry now.
But I think I think when you look at what we're all going through in terms of a country, is that it's given us the opportunity, isn't it, to actually take a step back and actually look at things. And I think, you know, given the fact that we've come up with this whole concept of talking about time traveling, but linking it back to your previous self, you know, what would you advise that person? You know, that's coming from having the time that you never have to actually do a lot of self-reflection, you know, and things with it. And I think anybody right now that's going through a situation where they are feeling stressed, or they are feeling a bit overwhelmed, take that step back. You know, take that step back and put a few crosses somewhere. If something's not lining up properly, don't be afraid to put a cross in it. You know, it's a very simple, effective tool that you can actually do for yourself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, this is an absolutely brilliant opportunity to be able to have that kind of introspection and deep reflection. And it may not be a pleasant experience in terms of when you really go in deep, you know, in terms of, you know, why am I the way I am? Why do I react like this? Why can't I be more effective at dealing with conflict or whatever it might be? And yeah, it is about looking back at your, you know, when I look back at my younger self, 10 or even 7 years ago, you know, before my eyes opened up to mindfulness. It was going to a mindfulness group of other like-minded people who were all struggling with something going on in their lives, and they just wanted to de-stress. I'll tell you one thing though, the basics of just establishing a regular breathing pattern. So what we've learned on the course, for example, with the life coaching course that we did, in terms of the chill seeker breathing, and sort of, you know, inhaling at a count, maybe up to 5, and then an exhaling. Something like that can just get you into an equilibrium that can just help you just to calm and just get you in a kind of a more kind of a, you know, in a state where you feel that you can think and feel more clearly, you know, and then from there you can then make whatever choices and decisions. But the worst decisions you can make are the ones where you've got heightened anxiety, you feel angry, you feel frustrated, you know, you're reacting to something which has caused lots of fear. That's the worst thing people could do now, is where they feel this heightened emotional stress because of the pandemic, and not sure. And it's totally understandable that, you know, people feel like this, but then again, the worst thing we can do is to react to it rather than try to be more proactive and try to understand it and manage it more effectively, which is what I probably would have done, you know, 10 years ago. If I'd known the technique, probably, you know, life would have been a different direction. But hey ho, it's all good. It's all present moment. It's all good, isn't it? Hindsight.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like I said, because 10 years ago, I literally jumped out of an airplane. I'd been traveling. I've done that. You know, but literally, sort of four years later, I get diagnosed with epilepsy. So
okay.
So the reason I'm bringing that into this discussion now, in terms of going live, is that again, when we think about sort of everything that we're doing as professionals, I didn't have the life skills. I wasn't prepared to be told that, you know, that I'm now epileptic. You know, I wasn't prepared to be told that you're not going to have your driver's license taken away from you for 1 whole year. You know, that's 1 whole year.
Oh, is that what happens? I didn't realize that. Oh my God. And you were like driving as normal, like I would be driving a car, anybody would be driving a car. It must have been a massive shock then, Neil. That must have been huge.
So for me, for a whole year, you know, like I said, you've now got a new diagnosis, you know, you've had your driver's license taken away from you. So again, when we come back, and I'm just using myself as an example,
that's brilliant.
I didn't have those skills. I didn't have those skills to actually understand why was I feeling angry, or I wasn't aware of the pressure, the added pressure that was going to come from that. So again, when we look at people in general and people that you need to take that time to actually really look at yourself and actually say, okay, so what's not working, or what's come into my environment that's making me now feel a bit on edge, or maybe I'm not actually doing as well in that area. So again, box strategy of just ticking off the boxes. I think what I'm trying to say is don't be afraid to turn around and put a cross or a tick somewhere in order to improve that area that you need to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just wondering, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I think, you know, our own personal stories are really, really powerful. They're powerful for the audience. They're powerful for us in terms of self-reflection, and also, you know, helping each other as colleagues as well, you know, when we open up and we share. So thank you for that, Neil. And I think also it highlights lots of different things. What really sticks out for me is, I don't know whether, like, maybe in my younger self, if somebody had kind of, I don't know, provided some training or insights into preparedness, you know, preparing for the unlikely event of, you know, because fair dues, we've got busy lives and we just have to get on with things. I understand that. But then it's almost like, you know, we put money aside for insurance, you know, insuring a house, insuring a car. But do we insure ourselves? I mean, not monetarily maybe, but kind of, you know, and so maybe in your context, maybe, you know, if say I was struck with a serious illness and just don't know what might happen in the future, you know, I'm always, you know, extremely wary of whenever I'm going outside, but obviously I have to go shopping, you know, for the essentials. I'm also shopping for my neighbor as well. I mean, they're quite elderly and they haven't stepped out for 8 weeks, so I'm doing a little bit of work there for them as well. But every time I go out, even with my mask and scarf on, I'm thinking, well, you know, what if I catch it? What happens to me and my children? Right. So I just think whether we can also, in terms of, I don't know, empowering and strengthening the mind to these things that happen, and what do we need to do, you know, say for example, in the event that it happens, how do we manage that emotionally, mentally, when we're in the situation? What do we need to do then? And also, it may also mean that our recovery from an illness, for example, may be further supported by certain techniques that are around the mind. And I don't know whether there's enough mind education going on. I definitely see there's a lot of possibilities of lots of mind-based work. so people can just become that much more aware and prepared. Because do you think now, Neil, that if we were to have a second wave of this, of this infection, are we necessarily all prepared to deal with it emotionally, mentally?
I don't think so, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so, because I think the thing is with it.
I agree with it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Everybody's an individual, aren't they? And everybody's got an individual sort of like outlook, concept. And I think the thing is with it is I think one thing that people are not prepared for is that uncertainty, because it could come uncertain. It would be uncertain again, isn't it? You know, like I said, you could have 6 months now of living a normal life, and then boop, there you go, we're on lockdown again. So again,
yeah.
But I think when it comes back to kind of like life skills and being prepared is make a note of, kind of like I said, if you've had a bad day through this, okay, or you're having a great day, again, just line it up. Okay, so what's made everything so good this time round? What was apparent when it was feeling bad? So at least if it does happen again, that you've got that understanding of actually, do you know what was my trigger point? You know, what's the trigger that's making me feel a bit on edge? You know,
absolutely.
Spend that time nurturing yourself now, you know, because ultimately, it's only really you that can nurture you.
Yeah, and it's so important to be able to identify, by sitting with the unpleasant, isn't it? You know, being comfortable with the uncomfortable, isn't it? It's about trying to just sit in it and trying to understand it. I think for me personally, I've always been keeping a little diary, or sometimes it becomes a personal log, sometimes it becomes a gratitude journal. It's just a notebook, really. I've been keeping for some time, and what I'm doing now is I'm kind of going back to my notes, and I'm just highlighting the things that I have learned, so the key learnings in terms of building my own resilience, because there's nobody that is teaching me or training me on how I can build my own resilience to a second wave, or how I'm going to be able to, manage myself, my work, or look after my children, especially if they're working in different cities around the country, etc. So it's about me training myself, but I'm doing it at the moment through reflection. And also, what's quite interesting as well, on the course we covered circle of confidence.
Yeah.
With the NLP technique, where you want to completely change your state. With the moment you're feeling angry or depressed or anxious, and then you sometimes forget, when you're in that state, all the brilliant things that you've done or achieved, all the brilliant things that have happened. And it's about going back. It's going back to all those good times, and just clocking on and just connecting like an avatar thing to those positive emotions that we experience. And I found on my gratitude journal, I'm able to like draw little circles and the positives and link them together. And I see a whole line of positives. And this is really powerful, because it's not only making me change my state, but it's also giving me a bit of a blueprint on, this is how I actually manage situations. This is how I always remain positive in the face of adversity, in terms of the impact of the restrictions and how I'm emotionally feeling them. Because the first week, I went not into a meltdown as such, but I was in shock for the first week. The first week of lockdown. I mean, my son was telling me for a week, "Dad, don't go gym, don't go to London, don't go on the tube." And he was like my dad, my 23-year-old son was. It wasn't until when the Downing Street briefing started, then that was when I just collapsed in the self. Oh my God, are we going to war or something? It was very powerful. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. And when you look back and now, like say for example, we're talking now, Neil, being you in the present with the audience, with us now. I don't want to be in a position like, maybe, hopefully not ever, but if something like this was ever to happen again, where the whole country or the world was just paralyzed, then I would want to be in a more resilient position. I really do, rather than being caught off guard emotionally, mentally. Like for a whole week I was thinking, what? And the news, and then I thought, oh God, I switched the news off. I'm only listening to the briefing.
But that's the thing with it, though, isn't it?
That was feeding something inside me that was increasing my negativity. really, you know. So
but that's the thing with it, though, isn't it? Is the media is it's such a powerful tool, but yet, like I said, when you think about it, and that's what we were saying last week, it sort of said it's really negative. You know, you know, if you woke up in the morning, if you wake up in the morning and you've been seeing for the past 8 weeks or 10 weeks that actually, you know, it's everything's great. We're going to look at this. We're going to try and look at that. We're going to look at this. You wouldn't feel, you would be responding in a positive way. But the fact that very quickly it's negative, 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 and everybody's starting to feel negative. You know,
absolutely. And you know, what I see as very interesting is how, like, when you look at media as a whole, I mean, obviously we've got the news media, and they are serving a particular role, okay, however which way you view it. But there's also this social media, like, you know, that we are engaging in, that we are able to give our own point of view, but obviously we can put our own spin on it. And then for us as life coaches, we are very much about being reflective ourselves and learning, but also being proactive. So then we can also draw lessons from our lives and other people's lives, so then we can help people. We can actually help people who are really suffering, you know, at this moment in time. I mean, just my general kind of communications or podcasts with people through social media. There's lots of people, not only are they dealing with huge amounts of stress and anxiety, and there's people are really stressed at the moment, but they're also having to deal with other issues as well, like, for example, experiencing a divorce, then experiencing a midlife crisis. Now, for me personally, I've experienced both a divorce and a midlife crisis about 6 years ago. Now, that was bad enough, but to have on top of that the uncertainty with what's happened with the fallout of this pandemic, and particularly if people's jobs or business has been affected, or even, you know, even worse still, people have become sick or died on top of these things, then I just, heaven knows how they're managing and coping. But it's always something that I think people, they just need to reach out to someone, or, you know, whether it's a friend or a trusted family member, or a therapist or a coach, just to reach out. And there's no shame in whatever you're going through. But when I reflect back, thinking there can't be anything worse than going through a divorce and a midlife crisis at the same time. But yeah, there is, you know, because now it's a choice of life and death, and then that wasn't my choice. It was like living, but living differently. But with the situation now, this is serious, you know. And I just feel that there's a massive opportunity, to kind of reflect back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what helped us in these difficult times. That when in 4 or 5 years' time, heaven forbid we don't have it, Neil, but if ever we get another pandemic, say we're still doing Instagram lives and hopefully forever. Absolutely, hopefully, if I'm still alive, then we want to be saying, Neil, in 2020, do you remember what we talked about? Do you remember what we discussed? That we need to bring that back in there, you know, because that worked or it didn't work. In terms of helping people, you know, in the future, you know. So yeah, absolutely. I do think that there is a real benefit in going back in time, learning things that have worked and things that haven't worked, or things that were missing. You know, for me, I think the start of the conversation that we're having is about, well, okay, you know, why didn't we have all this resilience training, mindset training? Well, maybe it didn't enter the collective conscience within the nation or the world at that time. But then things happen, and then things emerge, and we don't. I mean, I'm hoping that the whole well-being, everything to do with well-being is going to be, and health in general, is going to be made an absolute priority across the board in schools, colleges, universities, in the workplace. That, you know, emotional, mental well-being is absolutely, you know, critical. Check in with people, how they're feeling. Even if it means 5 minutes of a conversation in the morning before you start, it can be so powerful, and it can really connect with people. And you'll still get the best out of them, but they'll value even more because you're connecting with that part of them. It's not just about, have you done this spreadsheet? Have you done these notes? Have you done blah, 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 you know, which is fine in terms of work. Yeah, we understand all that. But it's about that emotional connection and the mental awareness is going to be so important moving forward.
It's building on what you
Sorry, Neil, carry on. Sorry.
No, but I think just building on what you said there, so when you think of like the people now that are sort of doing exams or they're expecting that, you know, it's what I said is that, you know, it's like a conveyor belt. You know, people go through the process, they do their exams, and then it's hey, that's it, you've left school, you know, or and then, you know, it's over to you now, you know, like I said. But the thing is with it is when do people get that time, even at the age of say 16 or 17 or 15? You know, when do they get that time to actually learn about life skills?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
when you think about it, they're going to leave school, they're going to do A levels. You know, like I said, this. So now they're starting to feel pressure about sort of, they've just done their GCSEs or whatever it's changed to now in terms of the examinations. But then they've got A levels. They're thinking about going to university. Everything collective pressure. And the thing is with it, is what I said, is where do people get that life skills training to understand about, you know, like you're saying, you know, about being resilient, you know, about taking that time for you, you know, these people that just go through the process, and then they get to a point in their lives where they may turn around and think, oh, do you know what, I actually find that quite interesting, someone said something. But I think it should be embedded now. It really should be embedded now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm just in on, that's a really fabulous point. It really is, and for me, if I just put my educational hat on, I believe that there are a couple of points there, particularly around motivation, because motivation can be intrinsic and then and also extrinsic. I think things have to be done in both camps. I think intrinsic motivation, people, you know, through social media, like what we're doing, people can just be aware that if they can search deep within and to really check in with how they're feeling and also how they're coping, ask for help if they need it, write things down, just get in check with your breathing, and just try to then maybe try to find a coach, find a therapist, or find someone to talk to, but do it with your own willingness. That's intrinsic. But extrinsic motivation, more needs to be done within the infrastructure of you know, of the country, worldwide, through the health service, supporting more voluntary organizations, particularly those who are really out to help people with mental health issues, to provide more help and support there. You know, through the school system, definitely schools. You know, when I work in schools and colleges running training courses or doing consultancy, I'm always harking on about mindset development, and they all nod their heads that yes, we need more of this, but they need to somehow embed it. I mean, you've got an educational and a health background, Neil. You understand what I'm talking about in terms of embedding it into teaching pedagogy, so people learn about it as well as learn the content for their curriculum, their exams, but they have the life skills incorporated in there as well. And also in the workplace, and also business owners as well need to have a responsibility for their employees and people who work for them to be aware of how they check in with them, and they may just need to be taught some strategies, which is why, you know, by actually connecting with, say, a life coach, for example, or a career coach, they may be able to offer, you know, particularly from a complementary alternative field, be able to offer some of those insights that people can marry together and then make it work for their own organization. But it needs to be driven intrinsically and extrinsically as well, for it to really to have some real long-lasting change. So then it enters a psyche, and it fuses us together. It fuses the ego and the intuition together, and the shadows are calmed down, and we can just really kind of, you know, reconcile with everything inside, and then move forward with confidence, resilience, and self-assurance.
But it's, I mean, we just had a comment, Abby Yoga. It's great to see in schools now kids being taught mindfulness in yoga from a young age, and that's
brilliant. I love that. I love that, Abby.
Yeah,
that's just right down my street.
Yeah.
it's like Neil, because you know, I told you last week that my 23-year-old son was finishing up his degree and he started to live with me in January, and he said, "Dad, why are you teaching me mindfulness and spirituality and mindset development? Because nobody else is going to do it, and I need to do it now." And then he tells me off for not being aware of what's happening with coronavirus. So I hope it's done some good, because his mindset has been raised now. His consciousness now has been, like, you know, he's telling me to stop doing things.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Like, you know, like I said, when you think of mindfulness, like, and especially like the point that Abby made there,
very powerful.
yoga, you know, it's powerful. You know, it's really, really powerful. You know, like I said,
yoga I have not discovered. So, is Abby going to teach us sometime? Abby, is that Abby's the one who is that or somebody else?
Yeah, let's ask Abby. Is she gonna teach us? Yeah. But no, it's you know, it's just. But again, isn't it? You know, it comes back to like when we think about this whole concept of what we're talking about today, in terms of like time traveling back to a previous self. You know, I would never have thought of yoga. You know, I would never have thought of it.
No.
I would never have thought about going to,
me neither.
You know, if I felt overwhelmed, I felt it was because I was doing something wrong, and that was only 10 years ago. Yeah.
And I think that Neil, I think people particularly in our field, or people who are in kind of, you know, energy healing, complementary alternative medicine, life coaching, NLP, I think this is where we can really combine our forces together and raise that awareness through social media, and you know, and you know, like within the work roles, because I mean, you know, I'm freelance, so I only choose to work in projects where I know I'll be able to have an impact, not just educationally, but also from a personal development point of view, that I'm helping managers, senior managers, to look at their programs and to look at the well-being of the kids and adults, for example, and just be more mindful. And you know what? We can't really say it's anyone's fault. It is what it is, and I think it's good to know. It's good to know it is what it is. And I know we can sometimes go back and say why, but we have the power of now, you know, and the power of now is really, really powerful. And like every moment now can build momentum to the future. And if we can start doing things, if we can share it on social media, and people will hopefully watch this video and start thinking about their own well-being, and then, you know, thinking about how they managed before, how they didn't manage before, and what do they need to do. So we've gone through a couple of techniques in this live, but absolutely there's a massive role in the future. I think it all starts now, isn't it? We have to carry on.
Yeah. It's got to start now, like you said, the power of now. But I think one thing that I would like to say to the people that's joined today is that the biggest battle that you're going to have is standing up to yourself. It's true, isn't it? It's true, because I'm just going
to send you a high fives. Yeah. I'm going to send you loads of high fives now, man.
Yeah, because I think that's it. You know, that's it.
That's where the problem and the solution is. Polarity.
You have to turn around and say to yourself, you've got to be. I was only saying to somebody the other day, you've got to be mean to yourself sometimes. You know, you've actually got to be mean to yourself, and you know, I'm guilty of it. You know, I was guilty of it 10 years ago. You know, to allow all that pressure to stand up. But the difference is now with life experience, life skills, life development, you acquire knowledge, and knowledge is power.
Yeah. It is really powerful, and particularly knowledge that's actually derived from personal experience. I mean, again, Neil, you've been brilliant to share your personal experiences in terms of what you've learned in particularly the last 10 years, and for me as well. Now, this morning, I decided to write an article for LinkedIn. I want to proofread it, but it's about shadows. It's about part of our psyche that it becomes a bit like a dumping ground, that things happen, and you know, and you know, we just compartmentalize it, and then it doesn't go through the amygdala part of the brain because it's too hurtful, it's too powerful, we haven't got time to deal with it, blah blah blah. And then suddenly it comes back, you know. And I've written an article about, you know, are your shadows much more pronounced and much more larger as a result of the coronavirus, and to really drill down as to what it actually is, and also to give 3 healing strategies for more self-regulation and personal mastery. And I'll tell you this now, 10 years ago, if you'd said to me, Neil, would you have, your younger self, 41, would you have been able to write? I said, what do you mean shadows? You mean the ones that you just like reflection of the light?
That's it.
That's not my answer. You'd be more aware, obviously, because you're talking in the present now. You're talking to me like 10 years ago. Other, what do you mean by shadows? So I've learned so much on this journey that there's a massive, I just feel it like an obligation to be able to share to others and just make them think, and just be aware that, you know, there are some, do you know that this exists, and there are ways to deal with it if you are really struggling at the moment. And absolutely, you know, things I wish, why didn't anybody tell me 10 years ago? But then I wouldn't have been able to have the privilege of sharing the stage with you now, Neil, in a very privileged position to be with you now, to be able to share these insights with yourself and the public. It just wouldn't have happened. So it's all good.
I think for me, and obviously I'm mindful of the time and stuff like that in terms of sort of people that's on here. But I think for me, I think the general sort of message that I would like to say to people today is just treat yourself as an open book, you know. But don't be scared that sometimes you might repeat the same chapter. But as long as you know that you're repeating the same chapter, and you're aware of that, well, then ask yourself, like, okay, so how can I move forward better, or what do I need to do? And I think sometimes, I hear a lot of is, I feel like I'm a failure. You know, I felt like a failure 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I felt like a failure. You know, I got diagnosed with epilepsy. Okay, but I wasn't a failure. That was just my mind telling me you're a failure.
That's just, understand.
And one important thing that I look at that, when someone says to me, I feel like I'm a failure. Okay, so I ask them the question, okay, so what are you trying to do to better yourself? Or what have you been trying to do? Well, I've been trying to do X, I've been trying to do Y, I've been trying to do Z, I've been going to the gym more. Well, how can you deem yourself a failure? And they say, well, what do you mean? If you're falling forward in life, you cannot be failing, because you're falling forward.
Absolutely. That's a really good, I love that. Falling forward, failing forward. If you're standing
vertical to the world, and you're constantly saying this and you're constantly saying that, and you're looking at things negatively, well, you're not falling forward.
No, absolutely, and that's a brilliant analogy, Neil. I'd like to offer an analogy to finish off as well, because in terms of the time travel concept that we've adopted in this particular live, that really what's happened now with the coronavirus, or anyone going through a midlife point, for example, or a critical point in their lives, basically we've been checkmated. Just imagine, like, you know, we've all been playing chess. We're all like a piece on the chessboard, and we thought we're making all the right moves in life to be able to do. But then suddenly, before you get to the finish, before you, and then you're faced by the queen, or the way I would look at it psychologically, the shadow is like saying, oh, you forgot about all this stuff you haven't dealt with yet, before you can move on to this part. So I'm going to checkmate you, forcing you to reflect on the past, and what worked, what didn't work, what have you learned from the past, what lessons has it taught you, even if there's no lesson specifically, but the lesson might be just to be more thoughtful and reflective, rather than just rushing around all the time, or just be mindful of one's health, mind, body, and soul, and then you can go forward. So I think everyone just needs to see, well, maybe we've all been checkmated, and we just got to try and work out whether the moves we've taken so far, have they been correct, appropriate? Have we gone a bit too above ourselves? Have we done something incorrect? Or so it's just a bit of a situation where we're forced to stand still. We're all forced to be mindful. And I have to say, I do believe that we may end up quite, you know, I think unwittingly, maybe more a mindful society. Because Neil, when I go out shopping, I mean, I went to B&Q to get some bits and bobs to fix some curtains in my son's room this week. I went to the shops, and I noticed everybody is very, they're more quieter. They're not engaging in conversation because they're very focused and mindful about keeping that distance, and then just following all the regulations that they need to follow to get into that shop, inside the shop and outside. So I think unwittingly, maybe the restrictions because of the pandemic, unwittingly maybe making people think a bit more before they act and they speak. This is what I think. I just hope we don't go into a situation where no lessons are learned, and then we have repetition of things where, you know, where we could have avoided. But there are also reports of lots of positives unwittingly from this pandemic. I mean, I've been receiving pictures from India from relatives of how in the Punjab, which is some of it is quite congested and polluted, but then now there's been less traffic on the road, less pollution being emitted, that they can start seeing the Himalayas, which is on the border of the Punjab. They can see it rather than being full of smog and smoke. So we've got to look at absolutely, you know, it's a bit of a pit stop or a tipping point, really, in terms of all of us just checking in. So, and then just staying safe and very mindful. But yeah, absolutely.
No, I think it's brilliant. And I think just one more further thing is, like I said, maybe sometimes you just got to look at it like, you know, in terms of just getting on a train. You know, you've got off the train and your train's been delayed. But you know, if you're in a situation that maybe things are a little bit difficult or whatever, but just take that time for you. That's, you know, that's what I would say to myself 10 years ago, and that's what I would say to anybody that's been listening today. Is just the most important thing is just take that time for you. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you have to keep a journal, just write down, you know, download what is in your subconscious or deeper still in your unconscious mind, because it's in our unconscious mind. We've got all the file store, and you may have just put it too far back, and you need to get it out again to review things and talk to someone. You know, talk to someone, talk to a trusted person. Or if you need to get some help, then, you know, obviously call out. There's lots of help available, lots of services out there. I mean, we also help people as well, going through things. So just to reach out, you know, really, really important. So you can look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, how can you look after anybody else? Particularly if you've got responsibilities and things like that. And you know, you need to be in a state where you can become great. You know, you can work on yourself, but you need to be really aware of what your mind's saying. Is there any talk going on inside? What's happening with my health, my physical health? But when you're eating healthily, exercising, and you're being mindful, that combination, that synergy can be really powerful, and it can just help you to move forward. That might be another segment, actually. We could look at that as another segment, the interaction with mind, body, and soul. But then again, I'll let you decide as my director, Neil, what's the next topic.
Well, anyway, I don't know if anyone's got any comments, but yeah, I think we've given it a great bash. I think it's been fantastic. I've enjoyed myself.
Thank you, Neil.
And I hope everyone else has.
Thank you so much.
So I'm now going to press end. I'm going to press the end on the live chat.
Yes. Okay. Take care. Thank you. Bye.
See you next week.
Bye. See you next week, Neil. Bye. 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 Bye.